So, welcome, Charlotte. It's really lovely to have you here, and I'm super excited about interviewing you and getting to know more about your role as a herbalist, as a medical herbalist. And I'm particularly interested in your um, the work that you are doing with sensitive people as well. So, yeah, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I've been really looking forward to this. Um, so yeah, I'm feeling good. Working from home today, so we may be joined by cats, dogs, whoever
Wonderful.
else wanders in. No humans though.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm always happy to see people's furry friends. So,
They tend to make
um,
themselves known when I'm working from home. So yeah.
yeah. So, can you start by telling us a bit about your background and what drew you to becoming a herbalist, and how has living and working with plant medicine shaped your relationship with your own health and your own body?
Yeah, sure. So I went to university when I was 18 to study herbal medicine, but my route to get there was really unusual. So it was August, and I was already, going to do another course. I went on to, I was going to do French, I think, and philosophy, which, yeah, feels like a million lifetimes ago, but was only about 20 years ago.
Mm.
And then I was just on the UCAS website looking at the clearing options. So obviously I wasn't completely sold on my course, otherwise I wouldn't have been on there. And I was just scrolling down. I got to H and I noticed a course in herbal medicine. It just really intrigued me.
Mm.
I knew absolutely nothing about it. Didn't have a single herbal book. Had only sort of had chamomile tea from the supermarket. And this was before you had like decent brands in the supermarket. Like we've got a few decent options now, like Pucker and Tea Pigs. This was just in the sort of
Yeah.
Twinings days. So I hadn't had any real experiences with herbal medicine, but I've reflected on this quite a bit over the years because I get asked a lot in the shop what drew me to herbal medicine. I don't have a solid answer. It just felt like a calling, if that doesn't sound too worthy and noble. It just felt like
Mhm.
when I read those words, something lit up inside me and I knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
It was really weird. So I applied, went to the interview up in Preston, and somehow passed the interview. And I'm still not sure how because I knew nothing. They must have just seen that I was passionate, and that must have been good enough at the tail end of the
Mhm.
clearing process. So I
Yeah.
started 3 weeks later.
Wow.
And that was that really. And it was the biggest learning curve of my life. It was absolutely wonderful. This is Mars.
Oh,
Um,
hello.
so yeah, it was wonderful, and it was affectionately known as the self development course between us as student herbalists. And um, that was the first university I attended. I did change halfway through to finish up at Lincoln University, but at the first uni, which was University of Central Lancashire, we trained in the same clinics as homeopaths.
Hmm.
And in the second university, University of Lincoln, we trained in the same clinic as acupuncturists. So I feel like I got to know a lot of interesting people on my journey. And even though we were studying completely different modalities, we would see each other in anatomy and physiology classes because that was the same across the board. So it was great having that split experience. Actually, I felt it really informed my learning journey and my self development as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, to answer the second part of your question,
Mhm.
I suppose I've spoken to a lot of herbalists about this. Becoming a herbalist is becoming more of yourself. That's how it should be
Yeah.
because it's a healing modality. So if you're going to put yourself in this position where you are purporting to heal other people or help them on their healing journey, you have to be in a decent place yourself. And it's walking that line between being a, 18-year-old who doesn't really know themselves very well. I'm sure that's not the case for every 18-year-old, but that was certainly true for me. And wanting to be a practitioner who knows everything because I have a perfectionist tendency, and realizing that's never going to happen. And if you think you've achieved that perfection, like you're in need of some supervision, like something's gone wrong because you no longer have you've drank your own Kool-Aid too much. So it's walking that path between knowing that you don't know as much as you will ever want to know, and knowing that you are in a good, solid, foundational place to help other people on their healing journeys. And I really think that's the work of a lifetime, Hayley.
Yeah.
I'm 37, I'll be 38 this year. I know more and more every year. And that's great, but it's also terrifying because you can get into your head thinking, well, if this is how much I know this year, how much more am I going to know next year? Shouldn't I wait till next year to do X, Y, and Z? And you can get into procrastination and stop stepping forward. So, yeah,
Yeah, I
any sort of healing
totally
modality is going
relate.
to take you on that journey of, I know enough, good enough is good enough. You know, if you're a safe, effective practitioner, it's okay to learn more every year and to just hold that.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And you can hold yourself back when you have perfectionist tendencies for sure. It sounds like you've got a good balance there. And I can relate as well, being a psychotherapist. And the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. And I'm like, oh, I really could do with doing some training in like ADHD and maybe a bit more trauma training and this and that. But also, I know that I have enough knowledge to support people. And yeah, so I can relate to that. And I love that you called the degree like a self-development degree. And
Yeah.
yeah, you're
We
saying,
all called it that. I think at one point it was affectionately known as the divorce course,
oh gosh.
which was also what they said when I was doing my counselling masters as well. That was also affectionately
Yeah,
called the divorce course.
yeah,
So,
I've heard that. Yeah.
and that was true for me, not at 18, but when I did my counselling, you know, years later, that
Mm.
was true for me. But I think anything could be a catalyst for that. If you are on a self-development journey and wanting to be your best self, if you're with someone who's quite stagnant, there's going to be that mismatch, whether that's friends or partners. So it's honoring that you're always going to be in this momentum of upward spiraling, ideally, as
Mm.
a practitioner. So it's been quite
And
the journey.
yeah, and from what I can see, you're still very much in that upward spiral. Like, I guess that's part of you, and it always will be.
Always, yeah. I mean, I got stuck for quite a while in this perfectionist idea of, oh, I'll do another course, I'll do another course.
Yeah.
And it's actually a form of avoidance, or it was for me. And I
Mm.
think it's true for a lot of women who are maybe on the spectrum, maybe highly intelligent, highly capable, but have this imposter syndrome as well. We think if we
Yeah.
just have one more degree, and actually it prevents us from taking that action, and we grow in that action, and that action helps us to fail, and that failure builds self-development and self-trust, and that's actually the real lesson. So I'm not
Yeah.
going back to uni anytime soon, but watch this space. I'm sure something will crop up again that I
Might
want to
come up.
study.
Yeah. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with herbalism, what does it involve? What does your day-to-day work look like? And what or who tends to come to you for support?
So I tend to see people who are at the end of their tether. I'm used to being a
Yeah.
last resort. I think every clinical herbalist is. And that's absolutely fine. So we hold space for that point in people's life where they've been through the change cycle enough on their own. They've maybe had some decent results, but not where they want to be. And they're really sort of at rock bottom, really. I mean, we're not perhaps in mental crisis, but in terms of a bit of resignation towards their health, a bit of, well, this maybe is as good as it gets. I'll just try this last ditch thing. I tend to work with a lot of sensitive, neurodiverse folks, a lot of people living with chronic illnesses, a lot of long COVID, obviously since 2021 onwards, really. So that's been really interesting. Again, back to that self development thing, we didn't get any training on that because it didn't exist. That's been fascinating to read the latest research and to connect the dots. And um, in terms of what my day looks like, there's so many different ways to be a herbalist, but I'm a medical herbalist, or if you've got any American viewers, they'll call it clinical herbalism. It's largely the same thing.
Mhm.
But you get a lot of herbalists that go into research. So a couple of the folks that I trained with went to work with large corporations, and worked in their sort of research lab. You've
Yeah.
got some that go on to do community herbalism, very grassroots stuff. I love that. That's also been a little bit of my path as well. I've really enjoyed that. And you get some that go straight into sort of farming, doing herb nurseries, which is wonderful because wouldn't
Wow.
wouldn't have our lovely organic herbs without them. So I'm really grateful to those folks.
Mm.
A lot of us do go into private practice, and that's what I've done. So I set up my company after I graduated when I was 21. The same day, I think. I was terribly enthusiastic,
Wow.
um, and still am, because I just think it's the best job in the world. And my day at the moment looks like today's a clinic day, so I'm speaking to you between patients. So I'm working from home today. I also have a shop and clinic in town, so that's when I see sort of face-to-face people, and where I have my dispensary. So a clinic day could be a couple of patients and then reviewing their case, dispensing their medications, posting them out. Lots of trips to the post office in this job. And ongoing research and study, really. So I'm involved in a couple of um, herbal groups of colleagues, peers, and then like more formal ones like my governing body, and very active chat groups everywhere, people popping up with like the latest research or maybe a complicated case that they want some input on. And it's quite collaborative because we tend to work as solo practitioners, as herbalists. So having that support is really important.
Yeah.
And then other days could be foraging,
Oh,
gathering, which is the best bit, I
I
think.
love
Apart
that.
from hearing people have fantastic results from the herbs, I think the next best bit is being with the plants. And then
Yeah.
all the other stuff that I'm sure you're really familiar with from being self employed, making content and planning out what you're going to do with the week and supervision and tax and all the other stuff.
Yeah. The paperwork.
Yeah, admin
Mm.
burden on my days.
This sounds really really varied, and it's nice that you've got that mix of like one-to-one work, and then you've got your shop, which is just beautiful. I love going in your shop and having a
Thank
browse and
you.
getting some nice teas or a tincture. Um, and then, yeah, the content creation. I don't know about you, but I quite like that. And I feel like I'm learning as I'm creating content. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I like that's adds another like bit of variety. But I really like that you're still enjoying going out and foraging and actually being with nature and being in nature. And I think sometimes the thing that kind of motivates us to begin a certain kind of journey or calling, sometimes that can get lost or diluted, you know. You can end up doing like loads more admin and like end up doing things that you didn't set out to do. But it sounds like, yeah, it sounds nice and varied and satisfying and rewarding.
It's certainly varied, and that really suits my ADHD because I have a wide range of interests and a relatively short attention span. So I need depth work with patients, and then I need maybe shorter stuff like filming a TikTok for 2 minutes. And
Yeah.
I resonate with what you said there about enjoying the content. I used to see it as a slog, but I see it as a creative process now, and that's
Yeah.
really important, I think. And it's a great way to have a chat with yourself about how you feel about your own visibility. And that's really important, especially if you've got a history of imposter syndrome, which I have.
Mhm.
And a lot of my patients deal with that as well. So it makes me more accountable to myself and also more able to relate to them on their journey. It's this
Mm.
constant recalibration of what am I doing in my business that I love and what do I dislike? Like I took on an assistant 2 months ago because I was up till midnight doing paperwork and I thought this isn't the best use of my time. I'm not enjoying it. It's burning me out. I have a history of burnout. Like, come on, cop onto yourself, Charlotte, kind of thing, in the nicest possible way. So I outsourced that, and ever since I've taken her on, I'm much happier. So
Amazing.
yeah, and that's that thing about business being a self development course in itself because you've always got to check in with yourself because you are your own business.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's great. Outsourcing the stuff that doesn't make you feel good. Um,
Definitely.
okay, so you've recently started working specifically with neurodivergent and sensitive women.
Mm,
And I just wondered what drew you to that focus and what do you notice about how their needs differ, if they do differ from people who you've been who are not neurodivergent or sensitive?
for sure. Our needs definitely differ. I identify as part of that category myself. I got diagnosis of autism and ADHD in 2023.
Mm.
And that completely changed my life, honestly. It just made me reframe how I thought about myself. And that's key, that's foundational. And I noticed that a lot of the patients I was attracting and working with anyway also either fitted the category, self-identified as that, or had been formally diagnosed. Not all patients, but probably over 50% by that point.
Yeah.
And I was told by my favourite tutor when I was at university that you will attract the patients that are mirrors to you. And I don't know if you find this in your work as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
And this came under the modules of, clinical competence and boundaries and transference and all of that. But he did point out Andrew Stableford was his name. He was just the most wonderful practitioner. If any herbalists are watching, please buy his book. It's incredible. And we talked a lot in our degree about how to hold that, how to hold when patients are your mirror, how to cope with it, from a clinical point of view, but also what that's going to require of you to get the best out of yourself then. And it's that constant up leveling that we talked about a few questions ago. So
Mm.
it made me a bit more intentional about my advertising, really, because I realized I was getting good results with these ladies. And I do see men as well, but I tend to have a general attraction to working with women.
Yeah.
They tend to be the ones that come to me for whatever reason. So I noticed that I was getting the best results with this population, and I noticed that I enjoyed it the most. And that came back to doing more of what I love and less of what I don't. So I'd always been a general herbalist, a generalist since I qualified in 2011. And that's great. I think you need that because people will come in with, neurodiversity, but they also are going to have physical issues as well.
Sure.
And if they're coming in and they've got, tonsillitis and you don't know how to deal with it, you can't just sort of treat the ADHD for that. You have to treat what walks in. So that was a great foundation. So I'd say to anyone wanting to specialize, make sure you do have the basics down first, definitely. And I just think that we're massively medically neglected as a cohort, really. Neurodivergent women, especially, obviously, the patriarchy in the medical system is alive and well and visible on almost
Mm.
every doctor's appointment. That goes double if you have a chronic illness. That goes triple if you have neurodiversity and a chronic illness, and they go hand in hand. So, what we know about the neurodivergent women's experience is that they are largely medically neglected. Their diagnosis takes a long time, both for the primary concern of neurodiversity and then the co occurring, or what a lot of practitioners would call comorbid symptoms and syndromes. So, things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, history of alcohol and drug dependency, all of these things are co-occurring in the same sort of clusters. So it doesn't make any sense to go to different practitioners to get them all sort of diagnosed differently. And when the body is one system,
Yeah.
that's the whole point of a holistic service, is that we are able to connect those dots, see the patterns, and treat the person and the underlying sort of fire, really, which is quite often in the nervous system and in the neurology.
Yeah, right. So you're really supporting people in a very holistic way. And yeah, you're seeing, like you said, a big chunk of the people who you were seeing when you were a general medical herbalist tended to fall under that category of neurodivergent, sensitive women.
Mm.
So yeah, um,
Usually, probably because the medical system had failed them and they were still feeling rubbish. So they were still
mm,
seeking answers.
yeah,
And thank God they were, because we do have to be our own biggest advocate, really. If you're living with unusual or less commonly known about conditions, you do have to go down these little rabbit holes on your own, present your own research to your own doctor, and ask for some results. So
mm,
I was naturally supporting these people to do that anyway. And then I just wanted to formally specialize in it because if you can help the most people you can, like that's the whole point of my job.
mm, yeah, right. So, are there particular herbs or plants that come up again and again for women who are sensitive, or like I suppose you're also perhaps treating, like you said, fatigue or maybe anxiety or burnout or overwhelm, because people who are sensitive tend to also experience those challenges.
Mm. Yeah, I think every herbalist has got their favourites. I've got a dispensary of a couple of hundred herbs, but there's probably 20 that I would, if I had to, just keep in my dispensary. We do a lot of traveling in our camper van, and one day I want to take my clinic sort of on the road, and
Oh,
I've been
yeah.
thinking about which 20 herbs would I take, or even 10 if I had to. So there's definitely some that crop up again and again in patient prescriptions. And
Yeah.
even you can have very similar prescriptions for patients that are very different, because the herbs you prescribe them for different reasons, because a herb doesn't just do one thing. It's a plant of hundreds of compounds, of
Mhm.
which several will be very, very chemically active, but you can prescribe them for different things in different strengths, in different modes. But some of my top ones would probably be oat tops, milky oat tops, which are, as the name suggests, the very top of the oat plant, that are quite green. And they are really, really wonderful for the nervous system. They literally coat the myelin sheath and give what I like to describe as a little bit of extra bandwidth to our nervous system. So they're
Mm.
really commonly prescribed for burnout, or people who have a tendency to burn out, or people who might be on the road to burnout. So they're a food, basically. A
Wow.
lot of herbs are, but in
Mm.
the proper amounts, in the proper strengths, they can be medicine. It's all kind of on a spectrum, the same as, you've got poison in a tiny, tiny amount, could be medicinal. And you've
Yeah.
got foods in a very, very strong amount, could be medicine. It's all a spectrum, like so much of life. So oats would be my number one go-to, I think. Um,
Wow.
Caveat that if you are celiac, you're probably not going to want to be taking oats, because they can potentially flare up. And
Yeah.
again, I see a lot of celiacs because these things tend to co-occur. So if I
Mm.
can't use oats, I might use something like lime flower, which is the blossom of the lime tree. And that's a gorgeous remedy. It's a cardiac tropho restorative, which just means it's a food for the heart. It restores the heart muscle. And the heart can be the seat of a lot of um, anxiety as well. If you're getting a lot of panic attacks with cardiac symptoms, palpitations, breathlessness, and so on, that can put strain on the heart. So we want to look at nourishing that heart with something like lime flower.
Yeah.
And lime flower is a wonderful nervine as well. So that just means to calm, to soothe, to promote balance. So I use a lot of nervines in clinic. Um, and yeah, it's probably my most used category of herbs, actually, for the patients that I see. I tend to focus on stabilizing with
Hmm.
the first few months. I usually work with, say, 6 to 9 months for most patients, maybe 12 if they're quite complex or if they want extra support.
Hmm.
But those first couple of months, I will focus on stabilizing that person, getting them feeling reassured, getting them down regulated, getting them feeling more in control, starting some self esteem work before we go in and look at anything very specific. Like if we've got a lady who's come in for perimenopause,
Yeah.
feeling quite overwhelmed by things. Yes, there's a hormonal aspect that we need to address, but that will require more change.
Yeah.
So we have to be from a nervous system resourced place in the nervous system to facilitate that healthy change. So that requires stabilizing. And also it goes back to that thing where people have often come to me as a last resort, and they've been medically neglected. They're knackered, they're at the end of their tether, they're not coping.
Mm.
And who can blame them? So they need and want and should have that experience of feeling good for a couple of months before we make any further changes.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. That makes complete sense. Helping someone to stabilize first before making some of the bigger changes or more complex, addressing some of the more complex issues. And I
Mm.
think for me, as a holistic psychotherapist, that's also really an important part of my approach, which is to help people to manage as best as they can their nervous system before we start doing some of the deeper talking therapy stuff or some of the looking at early life experiences, because that can actually therapy can rock the boat. And so if you're already feeling dysregulated and overwhelmed and stressed out, then it's probably not good to go into that straight away.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It comes
yeah,
back to being a safe practitioner, doesn't it? So yes, someone's come in
exactly.
with something that they want, like they might want to work with you to do trauma work. You have to be at that resourced place before you can delve in deeper. So yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
like we have really similar approaches, which I
yeah,
suspected we might.
yeah. It's also really interesting to hear about some of the more, you've only really touched on it, but like the specific biological or physiological benefits of some of the plants, like the oat tops coating the myelin sheath. And it's just really fascinating to me. I'd love to learn more about it. And but it does make me think of like how the general public perhaps or many people don't really understand how effective plants are, and that before conventional medicine we were supporting people in a medical way using plants. And um, I recently learned, which was really interesting to me, that salicylic acid, which I put on my face in the morning as a chemical exfoliator that I paid loads of money for, comes from the willow tree. And
Yeah.
I was like helping out at a farm the other week, and we were coppicing willow, and the guy was like, "Look, look," and he like showed me this like salicylic acid coming out, and I was like, "Oh, I put that on my face in the morning." And it just, yeah, it's very interesting to me, but still a new area.
Yeah.
Um,
It's amazing the crossover and the things that are just in our everyday life that are from plants. They've always been part of
yeah,
evolutionary history. You know, we need plants. It's just sort of bringing the attention to that.
yeah,
My whole life's work. So I
yeah.
love being able to talk about it.
So, what's your take on the relationship? You have touched on the nervous system. What's your take on the relationship between the nervous system and overall health? And where does herbalism fit into that picture? Because obviously it's quite a big part of what you do.
Yeah, hugely. I think nervous system has a foundational impact on our health, especially if we are looking at that subset of the population who identify as sensitive, neurodivergent, um, because our nervous system can give us the bandwidth for how much healing we can actually do, but
Mm,
it can also be the cause of so many illnesses. Just for myself, I developed fibromyalgia a couple of years ago, and when I trace it back, I can completely see that it was from burnout. It was from not having the bandwidth, not walking my own talk, not looking after myself properly.
mm,
So I reversed that and I've walked back from that and I'm not symptomatic anymore. And I can help my patients do the same. And I did that with herbal medicine, but that was a nervous system problem. And because I knew myself and I knew where I'd gone wrong, it was relatively quick to fix. That's not going to be the case for everybody. You know, I can't stand here and say I can do the same for you in a year, which is how long it took me. But the more information you have about your nervous system and how it's different for you as a neurodivergent woman, the more power you have. And that's something I think is really lacking, not only in the modern medical system, but also for women in general. Like we have gone from one end of the pendulum of not having any power to that sort of 90s and noughties, like boss babe hustle culture, which is
mm,
just anathema to a nervous system that's already on fire, to hopefully what I'm seeing more now is this balance of, yes, you can have everything, but not all at once because you'll burn out and you'll feel crap. So picking a lifestyle that supports what you actually want and maybe drop in a few battles. Um, so I do a lot of health coaching with my patients to help them design a lifestyle that actually that they want, because it's amazing what we just drift into as
yeah,
adults. Amazing what you have to do in our, end stage capitalism society that isn't actually what sets your soul on fire. So it's helping them design a life that, do I want to go back to university? Do I want to retrain? Does this marriage support me?
mm,
Do I actually want to have kids and I've never thought about it? And now I'm 35, where does that, is that going to happen? So some of it is that, and then some of it is very specifically herbs. So
yeah,
herbal medicine is really well, I would say this, but it's really, really key for helping us regulate our nervous system, because these plants contain active compounds that we have the receptors for already in our brains. Like we need them, we've evolved with them, and they've always been part of our diet. And we've just sort of neglected them and neglected ourselves in the process. It's bringing back some of the old ways, but tying it in with that modern science that we have that is great. I mean, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's absolutely a place for modern medicine. If I walk out of my house today to go to clinic and get hit by a car, like, I hope somebody would take me to hospital and not to clinic to get a chamomile. Like, there's a place for everything. But before we get to that point, there's a lot we can do, both at home and with a herbalist practitioner, to right what's gone wrong, basically. So you've got herbs that can come in and reassure that nervous system as we're making changes, like we've talked about, which can be destabilizing. You've got herbs like lemon balm, which I know you've had before from me. And they work directly on the GABA receptors to help promote those feelings of calm and reassurance. And when you're working from a place of feeling more reassured in your body, you make better decisions. So it's self-perpetuating. It's not that lemon balm is going to come in and fix everything. Lemon balm is going to come in and do what lemon balm does, which is to be a digestive aid for people who get sort of a nervous tummy, to promote sleep, to promote relaxation, to feel good. And then when you're feeling good, you're going to reach for the right foods. You're going to choose to go to bed at a decent time. You're going to have a more bounded conversation with someone instead of getting steamrolled over. So it's all like an upward spiral, like we talked about.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it, and hopefully also quite motivating and inspiring for people who are thinking about trying it but aren't sure, is it going to help, or is it, is it a waste of money, or can I be bothered? But to me, it sounds like it's like this idea that every tiny decision we make actually really impacts the next tiny decision that we make, and it has this amazing snowball effect. So yeah.
It is. And it's just making the right choices in tiny amounts day to day without overwhelming ourselves.
Yeah, and putting too much pressure on ourselves.
Exactly. The minute we come in with pressure, you get shut down, you don't feel good, you're not going to make the decisions that are best for you. I'm very much about low pressure, habit stacking, doing what's already working for you, not bulldozing the whole thing down.
Yeah. And the health coaching sounds great as well. I love that you are combining all of these different elements. And that leads on to the next question, really, which is how do you think about herbalism alongside other forms of support like therapy or breathwork or medication? And what do you think about the integration of all these aspects? I think you've already touched on that in your previous answers.
Yeah, ideally, we'd have this holistic, integrated practice, because herbal medicine is one modality.
Yeah.
It's not the be all and end all. I mean, it is for me. It's my whole life. It's what works for me. It's what works for my patients. But I think we're given so many modalities in the world because something's going to work for you, and it may not be this exactly. But also, a lot of them can combine really well. So, breath work, for example, is a wonderful tool for down regulating the nervous system, feeling more in control, completely free once you've learned the techniques. You can do it on the bus. You don't have to be taking anything with you. There's a huge amount of benefits to it. And I do some simple stuff like that with patients, but I'm not trained in it. I hope to be one day, but I'm in a phase of doing rather than learning at the moment. And then something like medication, absolutely it's got a place. If you're in mental crisis and you need to be on certain medications, I'm not going to dispel that. I can prescribe around it. When you and your prescriber have decided to change the dose on that or come off it altogether, herbs can step in and take more of a sort of biologic approach to maybe replace what's coming off. I see a lot of people who are in the process of coming off antidepressants, which they're doing safely with their prescriber, and they want like a little buffer almost. And herbs have a great place for that. I do think there's a massive conversation to be had about us all working together. I don't believe in competition. I just don't believe in it. I would love to work with any other herbalist, any other practitioner, even if we have the same client base, because why would you not want to reach more people or help them to
Yeah.
get the most out of what they're doing? Like, we're all working towards the same ends, basically. I hope we all succeed. Um, so yeah, integration is huge, and I think the more we can work together, the better results we're going to get for our patients. And for me, that's everything.
Yeah. And then we will have a more healthy and happy society, which just that's what we want, isn't it? We
That's the
want
whole
people to
point.
be feeling their best selves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with this subset of people that we both work with, I find them to be hugely gifted. They're all, almost always
Yeah.
above average intelligence. Not that that's everything by a long stretch, it's just something I've noticed. They've always got this untapped potential, these gifts that they just don't have the emotional or nervous system bandwidth to do much with. And
Mhm.
that's partly a societal problem. But if we can all work together to help people unlock their potential, like, imagine what could be done. It's incredibly exciting to think about.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, very exciting. So what do you wish more women knew about plant medicine before they dismiss it or assume that it's not for them?
Ooh, how long have you got?
Mm.
I suppose the key takeaway before I go on a little ramble would be that if you've been told by a conventional medical practitioner that
Yeah,
that's it, there's no more they can do for you, that's just their modality. That doesn't mean there's nothing more I or another practitioner can do for you. There is still hope, even if you've not been told that. There's no such thing as someone who's too complex to work with. There's no such thing as being written off by me or any other herbalist that I know. There's always something that can be done, whether that's looking at reducing your inflammation so you're less dependent on your painkillers, which most people want to be less dependent on. If you don't want to
yeah,
be, again, that's completely fine. Whether that's improving your sleep, which is then going to have that positive knock on effect on your inflammation anyway and your mental health. There's always something that can be done. It's never a hopeless case, absolutely never. And I guess what else I would love people to know is how strong, chemically active, and powerful herbal medicine is. Herbal medicine doesn't just have to be sort of supplements that you can buy from Amazon or tea that you can pick up at the supermarket. Like, that's the barest, merest, tiniest active compound in it because it's made for the mass market for the most profit.
yeah,
An actual medical herbalist will get you the strongest stuff available because we can buy things from our suppliers that you have to be a registered herbalist in order to purchase. They're behind a certain wall. So if you go onto something like Herbal Apothecary, there's a section that you as the public can purchase from, and then you have to use your professional login to get to the good stuff, the really strong stuff that's
yeah,
prescription only, which is not available in the shop. It's all kept downstairs. It has to be kept sort of locked away because it's so strong. Like, there's a reason that those rules are in place. Is because they're really strong, and because they're really strong, they can help you. So
yeah.
I just wish people knew the power and the strength of it because
Mm.
it's life changing. It can be completely life changing. It's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's really key what you said. Just because someone else has said they can't help you, it doesn't mean that you can't be helped by somebody else.
Yeah, I've got to look at the parameters. Like, I have so many women coming to me with a batch of blood tests, which I do request, and you're like, their ferritin, their iron might be within the normal parameters, but it might be like 10, and the lowest parameter is just 2 off from that, and they might be feeling exhausted, palpitations, breathlessness, the hair falling out. Just because it's normal and not subclinical doesn't mean that that's their optimum, doesn't mean that that's, okay, so they're not going to be given iron tablets, but I can give them iron rich herbs. And then suddenly their hair's growing back and they,
Yeah.
have more energy. And,
Yeah.
not just about what works for those regular medical parameters, it's about what's optimum for that person. It comes back to being holistic and actually looking what the problem is, not looking at what your piece of paper says.
Mm. So, what does your own nourishment and self-care practice look like, and what keeps you rooted?
Oh man, it's my whole life. So my journey back from chronic illness meant that I had to have a bit of a word with myself about the way that I was living, really, Hayley. And so have had to take it really seriously. especially since my diagnosis in 2023. So, yeah, 3 years ago now, I've been really, really hot on making myself a priority, which we are historically terrible at as women, especially if you're also a mother, which I am, if you're running a household, which most of us are.
Yeah.
Um, we tend to be bottom of the pile, and I've had to be really, really selfish about putting myself at the top of the pile. And that, for me, that looks like 2 yoga classes a week, somatic stretching at home, releasing my fascia at home, which holds stored trauma and can lead to inflammation. It's not just using herbs to reduce inflammation, it's looking at what's causing it. You know, you can play this game forever with
Mm.
your lifestyle, but at some point you're going to have to address what's actually causing it. Are you working too much? Is the way that you're working not suiting you?
Yeah.
For me, one of the biggest things that I've done is get myself onto a really consistent, strong herbal regimen and practicing what I preach. You know, I self prescribe for myself and I check in with another herbalist because we've all got our own blind spots to get something that's really powerful for me. So I've got them here actually, I can show you. So
Oh, yes, please.
that's my own mix. It's this
Wow.
massive 1 litre bottle. And so every quarter, every 3 months, I will change up my mix. So I'll have like a spring mix and a summer mix. So I have a tendency to get very hot in summer and very dysregulated because ADHD, hypothalamus. So I have a lot of cooling herbs in there, herbs to help with migraine because I have a tendency to get more in summer if I don't
Mm.
take the herbs. And then in spring now, like we're focusing on liver detox and getting rid of that sort of extra winter weight that we've accumulated and
Mm.
adjusting to the new amounts of light, which can trigger migraines in folks who are sensitive. Again, that goes along with the whole neurodiversity thing. So every quarter, I will change what's in my mix. In autumn, I might put in some more things to be rooted, to be grounded. I tend to do a lot more studying in autumn, so maybe a bit of rosemary to help with the focus. So take 2 shots of that every day, and I'm absolutely religious about it.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I've got my herbal teas as well because I love a good tea. So I've got my daytime mix here.
Ooh, looks lovely.
It's so pretty. It's got nettle and oats and calendula, red raspberry leaf, and lemon balm in. So that's my sort of general go-to multivitamin herbal tea.
Mm. Mm.
So it does a lot of things that we definitely wouldn't have time to delve into today, but that's sort of my herbalist approved daytime mix. There's
Yeah.
contraindications to all of those. So if you've got somebody watching who sort of identifies with what I've said, just check in, make sure that it's safe for any medications that you may be on.
Mm.
And then I've got my nighttime mix as well, which is my favourite. I can't wait to have this every evening. And this just smells amazing. It's got rose, passiflora, skullcap, and lavender in. Really
Lovely. I
amazing.
love rose. It's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
it's definitely one of my favourites. It's there's so many studies on the benefits of rose as well.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
one of the herbs I do work with, I should have mentioned in your earlier question actually, it's one of the herbs I put in. Probably most patients when they first come to me would have rose in some form because it really helps with self-esteem. When you have come in from that sort of rock bottom place, you're going to need that support.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in my mix because it promotes sweet dreams. So
Oh, love it.
yeah, and then I do a lot of like work on the allotment, walking the dog, a lot of
Yeah.
body-based stuff to get you out of your head and into the ground and to stay rooted, as you so beautifully put it.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. Sounds wonderful. Um, so finally, if someone is listening and thinking, I need this, how do they find you? What's the best first step for working with you? And also, yeah, like if you could let us know about your website, and I'll pop your links as well to your website and socials in below the YouTube video as well.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'd say my website would be the best first point of call, really. So it's homestead-herbal.org. And there's an inquiry form at the bottom. You can just send a message saying, hey, I resonated with the video. I'd like to explore X, Y, and Z. Or if you go to the same website and click onto services, you can just book straight into my calendar. There's usually a couple of weeks wait list. So it'd be sort of May now if you're watching at the time of release. I do a lot of work online, so a lot of my clinics are remote, so it doesn't matter where you work, where you are, we can still work together, and I can post the herbs out. So yeah, people are welcome to send an inquiry if they want more information or to just book straight in, really. And I'm always open to hearing feedback about anything they'd like to discuss further, really.
Mm, great. Well, thank you so much. It's been a really fascinating conversation, and I'm really keen to pop into the shop again and ask you a few more questions about your daily tea and the big liter bottle. What do you call that? Like your
So that's a tincture. So
tincture mix.
tincture means liquid herbs. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the big boy. I've got my
yeah.
partner on a similar sized one as well, and hers is quite bitter, and she always rolls her eyes when she's taking it. So yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much. It's been really lovely to chat to you today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, Hayley. I always love the opportunity to talk about my favourite thing in the world, which is herbs. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Take care.
You too. Bye.